One day the mother became seriously ill, and after she had called her daughter to her bedside to bless her, she died. The little girl was very sad and wept. Every day she went to her mother's grave to lay flowers and pray. She grew up to be a fine young girl, and after a while her father married again. The woman he married had 2 daughters of her own, and they all came to live together in the same house. It was then the problems began, and life became very hard for the young girl because her new stepmother and stepsisters were very unkind to her and ordered her about.
Anyone who wants to eat must earn it.
Should that silly girl stay in the same room as us?
Off you go to the kitchen and clean. Go on.
They took away her pretty clothes and gave her an old dress to wear. Instead of her shoes, they made her wear big wooden clogs. She had to work hard from morning till night, carrying in water from the well, lighting the fire, preparing meals. She also had to do the dishes and wash the clothes. At night, she slept in front of the hearth where the cinders of the fire gave her a little warmth. The cruel stepsisters began to call her Cinderella to tease her. When her father had to leave for a long business trip one day, he asked the 3 girls what he might bring them back as a present. The greedy stepsisters answered immediately.
Beautiful clothes.
A pearl necklace or one with precious stones.
Cinderella merely said,
Please bring me the branch of the first hazelnut tree that touches your hat as you ride by.
Cinderella's father left, and when he returned, brought with him the gifts the girls wanted. Cinderella went directly to her mother's grave, and on it planted the branch of the hazelnut tree. Years later, the king of the land announced a grand celebration at the palace that was to last 3 days. All the girls in the country were invited so as to give the prince an opportunity to choose a bride. The stepsisters were very excited and felt they had a good chance of being chosen by the prince, but they told Cinderella she was not allowed to go. Instead, they snapped at her.
Brush our hair.
Shine our shoes.
Iron our dresses.
The sisters washed and dressed, put on their makeup and jewellery and admired themselves proudly in the mirror before leaving for the palace. Poor Cinderella wanted so much to go too, and asked her stepmother to let her. The woman laughed in her face.
You go to the ball? You must be joking. Shall I tell you something? I dropped a bowl of lentils in the ashes of the fire just now. You can go to the ball when you have picked up each and every one of them.
Sadly, Cinderella sat on the kitchen floor and sobbed. She would have loved to go to the palace. Eventually, she pulled herself together and went into the garden to call the birds.
Come, little birds. Pigeons, sparrows, starlings. All of you come and help me pick up the lentils. Put the good ones in this bowl, and you can eat the others.
2 white doves flew in through the window, and soon many other birds came to help with the lentils. They gathered around the heap of ashes until they had finished, and then went outside again. Cinderella followed them out and walked to her mother's grave. When she got there, she said to herself,
Now I can go to the ball, but I need a pretty dress to wear. Please, hazelnut tree, shake your branches and bring a dress to me.
2 white doves flew to the tree and dropped a sparkling silvery dress that shone in the moonlight, with shoes to match. One of the doves cooed,
Ooh, ooh, the gown and the shoes must be back here by midnight. Not a minute later.
Cinderella put on the dress and shoes and walked to the palace. When she arrived, no one recognized her. Her stepsisters thought she was a princess from a faraway land. She looked so lovely. The prince noticed her immediately and thought, She's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. I want to dance with her. He took Cinderella's hand and danced with her all evening. A little before midnight, Cinderella left the ballroom and returned to the hazelnut tree. She changed back into her old dress and went home. When her stepmother and sisters arrived back, Cinderella was asleep beside the hearth, close to the warmth of the cinders. The second evening passed in much the same way. The prince only had eyes for Cinderella and danced with her in her beautiful gown until midnight, when she suddenly left. On the third evening, Cinderella went to the hazelnut tree, and the birds brought her a dress of pure gold with shoes to match. They flashed in the moonlight. This time the prince waited for the beautiful, mysterious girl to arrive. He would dance with no one else. He was so entranced by her that he devised a plan to trick her. Before the ball began, he had one of the stairs of the palace made sticky with glue, so that when Cinderella left in a hurry just before midnight, her left shoe got stuck. She left it behind and ran on to the hazelnut tree to change her clothes. The prince found the shoe on the stairs and declared, "This golden shoe belongs to the most beautiful girl in the world. I will find her, and when I do, I will marry her." The prince visited all the houses in the land and eventually came to the house of Cinderella and her stepsisters. The eldest stepsister tried to fit into the golden shoe, but it was too small. Her mother gave her a knife and said,
Slice a piece off your toes. Once you're queen, you won't have to walk anyway.
The girl did as she was told and put on the shoe, holding back tears of pain. Of course, the prince thought she was the one he wanted, so he took her away to be his wife. When they rode past the grave of Cinderella's mother, the two doves in the hazelnut tree cooed,
"Coo, coo, there's blood on her shoe. The shoe is too small. You haven't found your bride at all."
The prince looked at the girl's foot, and when he saw the blood, took her back home, where the youngest stepsister tried to get her foot into the shoe. But it was too small at the heel, and her mother hissed,
Squeeze it in. Once you're queen, you won't have to walk anyway.
The girl squeezed and squeezed until it really hurt, and then showed the prince. He was fooled, and took her off to the palace. But as they passed the grave, the two doves in the hazelnut tree cooed,
"Coo, coo, there's blood on her shoe. The shoe is too small. You haven't found your bride at all."
The prince saw that there was blood on the shoe again, and swung his horse around to take the girl back. He shouted to Cinderella's father, "This is not the girl I am looking for. Do you have any other daughters?" "Only the daughter of my dead wife." Cinderella was brought to the prince. She bowed before him and took the shoe to try it on. Of course, it fitted her perfectly, and the prince cried out, "This is the girl I'm searching for. This is my future bride." The prince was so happy that he took her in his arms and danced her around the room. Then he lifted her up onto his horse, and they rode off to the palace. When they passed the grave of Cinderella's mother, the two doves cooed,
"Coo, coo, there's no blood on her shoe. The shoe's not too small. You have found your bride after all."
The doves flew down to Cinderella's shoulders and went with her to the palace to protect her. The king invited the nobility of the land to celebrate his son's wedding. The mean stepsisters invited themselves and accompanied the bride to the church, all the while making rude comments about her. They were punished, though, for their wickedness. The doves pecked out their eyes and made them blind. Cinderella and her prince, however, were very happy, and danced at the wedding party for 3 whole days.